This is Anxiety Disorder 101. It's some of the things you need to know about anxiety disorder. So if you see in the picture, it is something that it's almost like a grasping thing. It almost like grasps us. And when we struggle with anxiety disorder, we feel like we have to hide from, whatever is going on, hide ourselves from others. But look at the statistics for 1 second. It is the most common mental health disorder, not only in US, but also in the whole wide world. So if you are struggling, or if somebody else is struggling with anxiety disorder, know that this is the most common mental health disorder. Almost 36% people that's going through anxiety disorder goes through social anxiety. So the moment we meet people, we want to like, we feel so embarrassed and shy, and what will people think of me, and people will think I'm stupid. What is this dress I'm wearing? How is my hair? What are the pimples? All those like things. um 1/3 of the people in our world. So right now we have about 17, 18 people here. So 1/3 of us struggle with anxiety. So literally, let me make it more even simpler. If you're in your home, there are 4 people, maybe at least one of them struggle with anxiety, if not 1/3 of them. um, 18% of people who are struggling with anxiety, they it's like, here it's 18%. With COVID, it became 30+%. Okay, it is the most treatable disorder, and yet only 1/3 of the people who have anxiety actually gets the treatment for it. Let me go to the next slide. Uh, Okay, so this is a world statistics that shows that anxiety disorder, according to WHO, is the most prevalent mental health disorder in the whole wide world. DSM-5 is a book we study, which elaborates any mental health disorders. It's a part of the ICD series, which doctors and other people have to study, which talks about all the diseases. Do you think fever is a problem? Or do you think, having, if somebody has cancer, would you blame them? If somebody struggles with, uh, you know, any physical ailments, would you, blame them? Anxiety disorder is just like any other diseases, but it affects our brain and our, internal system. So it's important we understand this. For us to be diagnosed as anxiety disorder, you know I probably have this. I had anxiety from a childhood. So it's definitely more than 6 months. But I will tell you my story in a second. But before I go, let me tell you how anxiety is a normal part of the system. Anxiety is just like any other emotions. Like, everybody feels anxious. Not doesn't mean everybody struggles with anxiety disorder. Anxiety, panic, fear, all of these are normal emotions that you and I struggle with. What is anxiety? You know, where did it start from? Probably, like, think about olden times, long time ago, when your and my forefathers were in the jungle. They were, in the caves or staying somewhere else, and they had to do hunting and gathering. And imagine that there is this ginormous bear in front. So what happens? Our body switches to a mode which is to protect us. Okay, so anxiety started is a mode that our body needs to go in order to protect us. So I'm going to elaborate what happens in our system in a couple of seconds. But if it did not happen, you and I would not be here, because everybody would have been eaten up. So good thing that there was something called anxiety. But in disorder, what happens is our brain, and that system is transmitted, into like all of us now. But now in anxiety disorder, even when there is no bear or lion, or there is nothing like happening, our body goes into that hyped up situation and we think our survival is at stake. So it's very important for you to understand that that's normal. It got inherited, but there is something happening at anxiety disorder that you need to recognize. Before I tell you that, let me tell you my story. I grew up as a, I told one of our friends here that I was very shy. I realized when I was doing this presentation, I was probably a very socially anxious. I was probably going through social anxiety. And when people would come, I would run away. People and me were not good friends. The moment I would go out, I would get like, I would be like, maybe like, for example, first time I would get afraid. Initially, I would just get afraid. Later, what happened would, imagine I would get into the bus and I have to go somewhere, I have to do something like a special event, our schools had this, inter-school dance things, or we had the running race or whatever. And immediately, I would start feeling dizzy. I would start like, I would get, my stomach would hurt so bad. If I would even think about getting into the school bus, getting ready for school, my stomach would start hurting. I would get like severe stomach cramps. And when it would get even worse, where, if there was something special, my heart would start pounding. I could feel my heart rate up here. It would pound so hard, and it would be like 120, 40, 70, and I'm like, I'm like shaking. I'm like, I'm getting a heart attack. My lips would turn blue. I would like be shivering. I would be cold. I would get headache. I would be like everything. Every time I write a test, do a presentation, I get stomachache. But guess what? That's, where I was, and I will tell you where I am today. But, I will come how, the reason I am presenting on this topic is because something has happened that has changed from this stage where I'm able to present this today to you. And, I have presented in, conventions and other things. And what changed? And I want you to hold on to my experience right here and hear about this story of Ronnie, who was 16. And Ronnie is one of my clients, but name changed. Anytime he would be in class, he would, especially in maths class, I used to hate maths, but maths class, he would think his brain is exploding and he has no idea what's going on. He just goes blank. I would get blank when I would write tests. We would go blank, I would be hot, sweaty, or cold or shivering, and he literally would push everything and run away. He went up into the principal's office, but he was fine and he was apologizing by then. Arun was 17. He initially had some friends. When he became more and more grew up more, he would be embarrassed to just face people anywhere. He would think, I'm going to say something stupid. I would be like embarrassing myself and my family. I would, do something that, everybody would remember for the rest of their lives, and they would always hold it against me. And, it would be just so paralyzing, literally, that Arun can't do anything. He doesn't want to work. He didn't want to go to school. It was just unbelievably difficult. And this anxiety can be pretty paralyzing if it is not treated well. And it makes us feel as if I'm stupid. People think we are stupid. There's a lot of labeling, self-labeling that goes on. And it's important that we recognize what's going on. Anxiety disorder often accompanies depression, okay? It's almost like half and half. Most people who have anxiety will struggle with something else. So please remember to analyze yourself, and if somebody else is going through, normalize and help them figure out what's going on. And sometimes, especially with cancer or other chronic illnesses, anxiety disorder will step in. So let's go into the symptoms of anxiety, okay? Physical sensations. Anxiety is, imagine like a lighthouse. It's trying to give you a signal, okay? So it starts from your, it affects every part of your body, but think about the physical symptoms. It affects our sympathetic nervous system, okay? So that's why we have the fight, flight, or freeze. Those are the three things, okay? Fight, where we get aggressive. And if you see somebody with anxiety, they might get really aggressive. Flight, they're like, I don't want to do this. I just want to end. I always, when I was growing up, I didn't want to study. I wanted to stop studying when I never wanted to study. Always wanted to run away from exam halls. I never wanted to face anything that had anxiety. So flight, that was a big thing. Or freeze. Sometimes something happened and we just don't know how to respond and we freeze. Mentally, we get hypervigilant. I'm not going to go into PTSD today, okay? PTSD going to be another topic, especially when it is, how it affects anxiety and all that. It's a huge topic. It's a monster in itself. I'm not going to go into that today. So, but remember, there is a mental rehearsal that goes on at anxiety. Oh my goodness, this is going to happen, and I'm going to fail the test, and then people are going to look down on me, and there's a mental, narration that happens. And what do? We avoid, we escape, and I'm going to talk about avoidance in a system. But before I go into this, it's important when we talk about anything counseling or psychology related thing, that you always pair it up with the medical part, because it's not always, so there is two parts. One is the natural, like, in everything, any disorder in mental health field, there is a natural thing and there is a genetic thing, medical thing as well. So I have Dr. Judy on the team with me, who is going to actually give a little bit idea as to how the brain functions in a second. And then I'm going to elaborate, I'm going to like piggyback on that if necessary as well. But Judy, if you unmute yourself, tell us about how anxiety affects the two things. One is the brain and the central nervous system. So just do the brain first.
Okay, so some symptoms of anxiety are thought to be a disruption in our emotional processing center. And our emotional processing center is located in the limbic system, which is located right in the middle of the bottom of the cerebrum, which is the cerebrum is the huge portion of the brain, and then the amygdala, hippocampus, thalamus, and hypothalamus are located in the limbic system. So this is where our emotional processing occurs. And people with anxiety tend to have a very heightened activity in this area mainly. And yeah, that's pretty much it. That's where the focus is.
Okay, so and see how from here, now the brain will send you the signal to the rest of the body. Okay, so have that in mind. So now go to the rest of the body.
Okay, so I think Satabdi talked about this a little bit. So we have a system called the autonomic nervous system, and that's divided into two sections, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. So the sympathetic nervous system is like what she said, it's the fight or flight response. And this is what basically prepares the body for stress. So during this time, our cortisol, adrenaline goes up, and we have increased heart rate and blood pressure. But we decrease our digestion and gut blood flow because we're trying to get our blood flow to the heart and lungs. On the other side, the parasympathetic system is the opposite. It's what we call the rest and digest system. So this is what returns the body to a calm state, and it's what repairs the body. So during anxiety, basically our sympathetic system is in overdrive. So our parasympathetic system is not kicking in. And so it's not good to be in such a heightened, tense, responsive state, for a long period of time.
And that's where, like, with prolonged anxiety and PTSD, it becomes such a big problem. But even just while we are here, think about when we are anxious, right? So if we are in the fight, flight, or freeze mode, right? So think about a bull chasing you. An angry bull is right behind you. What are you going to do? So your body is in the fight or flight mode. So basically our muscles tense up. So think about when anxiety hits, these are actually going to be, these are going to be telltale signs that you're getting anxious. You get stiff, your muscles gets really hard, when there's a bull behind you, you don't want to hear what else is happening. You want to run. So your ears close. So literally, if you're trying to talk to somebody who's anxious, it will not work. If somebody, because their ears are closed, they are in the fight mode. They don't want to hear anything. They will just want to run or fight. So, don't try to explain to somebody. Counseling at that heightened mode will not work. So that's what I'm telling you now, because your parasympathetic nervous system is at play. You breathe normal, and this is important for you to understand, because recognize these things in yourself and somebody else. Adrenaline hormone is an important part, where we're going to discuss a little bit of that as well when we go into the medication and all that stuff. But remember how I was talking about the heartbeat. So when you're running, your heart beats very fast, your muscles tense up. So remember, those things are the same things that happen in a anxiety disorder. So Judy already covered this part. But remember, when we are anxious, and even now when I feel anxious, my tongue will get dry. So I might drink some water. Water break. So let's talk about the system. So I want to be careful of the time as well. Panic. So we hyperventilate. We try to, our physical, what are the things that happens? So when we get stressed, we get dizzy, sweating. I already told, I feel like we'll die and I'm going to have a heart attack. Those are things that is going to happen. You feel like you're losing control over everything. What we have what I used to think I'm going to have a heart attack. So, with heart racing so fast, we faint, we feel suffocated. And I told you, I used to turn blue. Lightheaded. I used to, I said, I like the faint thing. You lose control, hyperventilate, body changes, vomit. I used to I vomit a couple of times. I told you about stomach distress. We feel like we are going crazy, derealization. All of these things are very normal part of what's happening. So let me move this. So, and the other part, I'll make a fool of myself. So remember, I'm telling you internal processing of somebody who's going through anxiety. So when somebody is going through, it's good to, or somebody who has, it's good to reassure that that's not the case. That's only in our brains. So we don't need to feel that way. When our car alarm breaks off, the problem is not with the whole car and we want to dump it. Sometimes you're like, I'm fed up of this life. I just want to die. No, we try to fix whatever is the problem. And sometimes it's hard fix, but in anxiety disorder, our body's alarm system is at problem. So the three things: sympathetic arousal, cognitive attribution, so what we think, and emotional labeling. So the common things, and I told him, I'm not going to go into PTSD today, but we have the common, this thing is panic disorder, specific phobia, social phobia. I told you social phobia is the most common one. Generalized anxiety disorder, separation anxiety disorder. If you remember, for kids, when the small kid, is left from the mommy or daddy and they'll be crying, separation anxiety. Selective mutism, and I'm going to get selective mutism is basically some people, when they go out, they can't speak. They just, they might even lose their voice, or they might be like, nothing will come out from their mouth because of anxiety. So it's very common. Women sometimes go through more of anxiety. It's highly treatable. Remember that about 7% of the world population, 12% of the US struggles with, 36 of which percentage struggle with SAD. It usually starts around age 13. It started way earlier for me. 40% of Americans experience panic attack at some point of their life, and 4% develop panic disorder. Okay. Specific phobia. I have specific phobia too. Bugs is mine, but it's persistent. It's out of proportion. I see a bug, I feel like I'm gonna die, and it's like horrible. So cognitive, like it leads to like behavioral responses. I like totally freak out. I one time I literally acted like I literally regressed a couple of years when I saw a cockroach. So that's a way overblown situation. Most likely it was for me genetically. So it's genetically based. So don't blame yourself for it. Just blame all those ancestors, just put it on them. That's fine. But remember, there is a part, I told you about what is our role in building it up or continuing it. We need to talk about that in a second. Maintained through, conditioning. Social phobia, I told you, it's more pervasive. It's distinguished from fear of doing something in front of other people. Let me get this out of the way. It may be situational, and it talks about anxiety. It may be having, it's like I have to do something, I have to perform something, I have to present something, blah blah blah. Fear of what will others think. That's a big part of it. Panic disorder. There are two types. With or without agoraphobia. Agoraphobia is like fear of going into open space. It's a consistent pattern of recurring the panic disorder. So basically, in panic disorder, every time I would go out, I would be afraid that I would get a panic disorder and get a panic attack. So that fear of panic attack sets up another panic attack. So it's like catch 22. Emotional, physical, cognitive component. The main fear of losing control. We have a lot of fears going on in our brain. It becomes a problem right there. We feel uncomfortable about a physical this thing. We think something bad is going to happen, and guess what happens? Panic attack. OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. That's a little less frequent, known disorders, but it is still out there, and you can see some people with it. There are some compulsive things they have to do, like hand washing. There's some things they have to do in order to calm. They have anxiety. They think, and this compulsive behaviors are actually sometimes maintaining that too. They want to do that in order to alleviate it, but the problem is it just, again, catch 22. Generalized anxiety disorder, no matter what happens, you feel anxious. If you have nothing else to feel anxious about, you'll be anxious about that, that, oh, I don't have anything to feel anxious about. No, just kidding. But in generalized anxiety disorder, it is like you have anxiety about simple things. It's just your mind has such a hard time. You feel irritable, you can't concentrate, your muscle aches, soreness, worry, fatigue, restlessness, hard time sleeping, all kinds of hard time swallowing. It has a lot of, but there's no specific reason for it. When you come to a doctor or a counselor, they will see what issues they have, and your diagnosis is gonna be based on that. The first thing you do in order to help is first separating your feelings. Your physical, learn to recognize, because from your brain, when it sends the thing down to your nervous system, recognize those physical symptoms first. If you recognize them right there, you can start intervening right there. So recognize your physical sensations. What happens when your body gets anxious? What happens? What does your mind start thinking and feeling? So recognize those. So you can start separating those things and recognize that, oh, I'm just feeling anxious, and there is really no bull running after me. I don't have to feel anxious. Okay. So fight your craving. You know what? I know too many people I feel anxious. Okay, let me go smoke. And I need a cigarette break. Guess what happens? You're actually reinforcing your anxiety. And sometimes some of your coping mechanisms is worse for your anxiety than what it was before. So some of those coping mechanisms sometimes actually promote or reinforce anxiety. what you need to do instead is take a deep breath. Find out your coping skills. What helps you calm down? If you need to go for a 5 minutes walk, take a 5 minutes break, tune into your senses. What am I feeling? If I had to literally, when I had a panic attack, I needed to sleep. I literally need to eat something light, and I some people might drink a warm water. I mean, I tried that too. Taking some bath, if it is cold country, hot water. If it's hot country, cold water. What's your coping skills? What I would suggest, when you lie down on your bed normally, in normal times, not when you're having, don't start practicing this when you're having a panic attack. That's not the place to start. Start when you're at your base level. And when you lie down, and breathe all the way till your tummy can go up, and then breathe out everything and until your tummy can go down. So keep doing that. And that's called diaphragmatic breathing. So you're breathing from your diaphragm. So make sure if you practice this in normal times. So later on, I'll tell you why you need this. So this is your normal time practicing. The other thing is practicing having an attitude of gratitude. Counseling and Bible speaks the importance of being grateful, because it has literally you have to now start retraining, restructuring your brain. How you have thought, you have learned for years, you need to restructure that. Don't go into the stormy. Sunny is like, yeah, everything is okay. Rainbow is, I'm grateful. And that literally calms you down. So don't go into the negative thinking pattern, because it's a spiral down. Learn what we do in a CBT, for example, or other things, reality check, and be positive. A big word thing in our counseling we learn is, I think, therefore I am. What are you thinking about yourself? What are the things you are actually teaching yourself and telling yourself and reinforcing yourself? Thoughts are powerful. Think right now with me, the time that you really felt you messed it up. And, you really felt that, you don't know what you're going to do and everything is over. And that just makes you so sad. That 1 second, and now just think with me for 1 second now, that, the time you got an award or did something great and people were so proud of you, no matter what age you were, and that just makes you feel happy. Your thoughts are powerful in controlling how you feel and how you respond. So start with your thoughts. It's very important to, change your thought pattern. The other part before people thought that whatever happened in my childhood, that it, I mean, nothing will change in life. I am done for all my life, but that is not true. You decide. So example, the plant you give more water as in like the plant you give water and sunlight will thrive. The plant you do not give water and sunlight will die. Same thing happens. The thought you feed flourishes. The thought you don't feed, you just ignore. It comes to your mind. In James, it says, when a sin comes, either we can indulge with it and sin, or just let it pass and not indulge with it. So the thought you don't feed, the thought you don't indulge with, let the negative thought come and go away. Don't indulge with it. The less you feed that, it'll die. So that's one of the important part. And I'm not going to go into this, but it's important for you to rewire your anxious brain. Couple of experiments you need to do is, you have to understand that it is a body alarm problem. So don't beat yourself up for it. So do some behavioral experiments. Like for example, when you're normal, you can have a rehearsal with somebody of an anxious point, and then work backwards and see what what was I feeling, what was I thinking, and change your thought pattern and change your body behavior. And I told you about the deep breathing. So always pair, and we're going to talk about this in a second, always pair your coping skills with your when you're getting anxious, bring in your coping skills, practice your coping skills other times so you can bring it in when you have anxiety. When you are not in an anxious stage, visualize, like before you go for a presentation, think about what is going to happen, and you already feel anxious. So deep breathe. uh, I told you about mindfulness, let the thought just pass, don't indulge with it. I want to spend a couple of seconds with avoidance behavior. We come up with this kind of self-medication. I will only go if a friend is coming with me, or my mom is coming and dropping me, or whatever. I don't go to birthday parties. I don't go to mom. I don't want to do this. I don't go to do it. I don't take bus rides. Those are avoidance behavior. And the problem is all of these things. Some people use weeds. Some people use cigarettes. Some people have safety rituals. These actually reinforce your anxiety. So stop that. You have to break that cycle. You have to stop reinforcing those things. So can you stop? Can you try to meet whatever avoidance things you have done, whatever drugs you have tried to take, drugs as in like unhealthy drugs, and whatever, like I can only do this with somebody else. Come out of these four things. Get rid of these. These are false alarms. They contribute to chronic anxiety. You're actually making it worse when you do these four things. These interfere with your life. I will tell you in a second, because these things actually, when I believed in Jesus, how this actually changed. But before that, I'll take a second before we go into the spiritual part to talk about medication. And I'll ask Judy, who is a doctor, who can speak a couple of seconds about this medication part of the anxiety. So.
Sure. This is my least favorite part, but I will speak on it. So we can see here, she wrote anxiolytics are drugs that reduce anxiety, right? So lytic literally means destroy. So benzodiazepines are a class of medications. So I guess the first thing I want to say is our central nervous system is made up of the brain and spinal cord, right? So there are neurotransmitters that work between the brain and spinal cord, and they carry signals between the nerve cells in the brain. So all of these drugs work on either the neurotransmitter or its receptor. So for benzos, these are a class of drugs. They bind by inhibiting, they bind to GABA receptors. So GABA is an inhibitory neurotransmitter. So basically this causes the central nervous system, it's called CNS depression, and it brings the anxiety levels down. When it comes to antidepressants, we have TCAs, which are tricyclic antidepressants. We have SSRIs, which are selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, and SNRIs, which are serotonin norepinephrine. Increase the levels of serotonin in the brain. After serotonin carries a message, it's usually reabsorbed in the brain. And so this inhibits the reuptake. So it just makes sure that more serotonin is available. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
So, when we have all these disorders, we have a couple of, like either sometimes we lack certain amount of like dopamine, or, all the, some of these hormones. And sometimes, we have to remember I just want to take 1 second and go into diet, exercise, and medication is like necessary for like to bring you up. And if your body has a chronic issue, you have to be on it. But this class 1 medications were like, it gives a lot of other it's sometimes necessary when you have such a serious issue, but if you have a milder one, usually many of my clients go in this route. But remember, what you eat makes a big difference too. Eating healthy food, and if you go back to Judy's last presentations, it's there in our on our Facebook page. Go back and listen to that. Healthy food and exercise, and engaging is so important for helping us reduce anxiety. Use these things. And let me go into recovery. So we need to stop these panic attacks. We need to think about recovery. How do we recover? Sorry, let me see. As we spoke about the recover things, it doesn't mean that you will never have another panic attack. You will never get anxious. You never feel stressed. You never feel emotional difficulties. These are not what it means. It actually means that, it will be a lot more controlled. And that's where I want you to tell about a little bit of my story. When I was so into literally, I would get panic attacks so much. And I had this rituals with me. I could not go out without somebody is holding somebody's hand. I could not go, being with somebody was kind of my ritual, or some kind of coping thing I had come up with. But all of that changed when I believed in Jesus. Guess what happened? So there are some things from the Bible and something that resulted up when I stood up for my faith. So those are two things I want to speak up. One, scripture says, cast all your anxieties on him because he cares for you. That's a command from the Bible, that we cast our anxiety. That means we have anxiety, and every time I have anxiety, oh God, I said, oh Lord, I can't carry this. I'm just going to give it to you. You worry about it. It's not my problem. So I literally cast it on him. The other part is, do not be anxious about anything, but with every situation, in every situation, not only one or two situations, in every situation, by prayer and petition and with thanksgiving. Remember gratitude? Look at how scientifically accurate the scriptures are. The Bible is. Present your request to God, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and mind in Christ. Christ gives us something special. So how the medicine tries to do this, that, and tries to help with our in our system, there's a spiritual aspect where the Lord gives us a peace. And I'm pretty sure if you have accepted Jesus and you were feeling anxious and you prayed, and you would have experienced this peace. And this is a very real peace that I have experienced, that a lot of people here have experienced. And if you have not experienced, I want to tell you about it. I want you to say that he identifies with our anxiety. When he was in the Garden of Gethsemane, and it says, that literally he was so much in anguish, and he prayed earnestly, and the sweat was dropping like blood. That was the amount of anguish. He identifies with us. But not only that, he cares enough to do something about it. And that's where it says, but scripture says, but God demonstrated his own love towards us. Why does he care? How does he care? How do you know he cares? Because he demonstrated it. I was from a background where I worshipped so many gods, so many in my house. There are so many idols, so many statues. But in Christ, I found a God who demonstrated his love practically. That when I was still a sinner, when all these generational sins and curses were on me, he did something. He died for me. He took my place. And when Jesus, he's God, he loved me. He took on my place. He took on all the sins I have committed. He took all of that upon himself, and he died for me and for you. And that is a proof that he loves. If you ever feel God does not love you, look at the cross. And it says, if he who did not spare his own son, Father did not spare his own son, but gave him up for us, will he not also, along with him, generously give us all things? Will he not give us all things? Remember how much God loves us. And that is why we can not only we trust in his love, but think about Christ not only died, but he rose again and he's victorious. He broke the greatest fear of all mankind. What's the greatest fear? People are afraid of dying. Remember a panic attack? I was, I'm going to die, And he broke the power of death. He rose again and he says, I am willing to give you the resurrection power. That's the greatest power you can have. And that can be yours because he who rose again from the dead is willing to give that to you today. And he says, my peace I live with you, not as the world gives. Yes, meditations and transcendental yoga and all that stuff will say that you have some peace, but that's temporary and that's all gone. But in Christ, you have a peace that surpasses all understanding. And it says, I did not give you as the world gives. Do not let your heart be troubled and do not be afraid. You don't have to be afraid. You can choose to cast it on to Jesus with thanksgiving, pray, and leave it at his feet and not take it back. This is the offer that Christ wants to give to you, but are you willing to receive it? It cannot be yours. It cannot be yours until you say, Lord, I have carried this burden for way too long. And today I need that peace. Today I need the forgiveness of sins. Today I need you to take away this burden. And Jesus says, come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. If you're not getting rest, it's because you're not casting your anxieties to him. It is because you're not willing to surrender it all and trust in his love. It is not because he already is willing to give you the peace and you're not receiving it. Will you receive it now? Will you receive it today? And all you need to do is just from the bottom of your heart, cry out to your creator. Remember the deep breathing I told you. I'll finish with this. There are some resources I can leave with you, but remember the deep breathing. When God made Adam and Eve, what's the first thing he did from when he made Adam and Eve from the dust of the earth, and he made Adam and Eve, and what did he do? He breathed into Adam. Every time you breathe, every time you feel anxious, remember your creator and take a deep breath, because it's almost like you can remember that you're taking in his presence and all that he has to offer. So when you feel anxious, deep breathe and remember your creator. So with that, I conclude my presentation, and over to you, Judy.
Thanks, Satabdi. That was a wonderful presentation. I hope everyone enjoyed that. Please send me any questions or comments as we start our Q&A now. We can still, ask her after I finish asking her the main questions. So the first question that we have here is, are anxiety and depression related?
I told you initially that, anxiety and depression are almost like half and half, almost two sides of the coin. A lot of people who struggle with anxiety do suffer with depression. Not everybody, but a lot of them. And in the course of their lifetime, a lot of times you can see that happen to people who are anxious also are feeling depressed.
Thank you. Yes. Next.
You want to add something?
No, it's good. You answered it perfectly. Next question asks, all of these measures are just theoretical because they're easier to speak about, but harder to implement. We are not robots where we can just turn off one function when it is acting up too much in the body. So
and that is exactly why a lot of people struggle, and this goes through the whole lifetime. I told you it would have happened to me too. when I did my research, it was evident that anxiety only keeps increasing with if you have a childhood onset. But guess what happened to me? It did change, and I'm a living evidence and a testimony to you today. If you are struggling with anxiety, that it can change. If only you give your creator the ability to turn that switch on and off. You have to surrender. You have to come to the Lord Jesus and say, God, I tried this all my life and I cannot. And pray that God would just bring you to the right people, right counselors. It's hard to find them. I'm not kidding you. When I studied counseling, and when I started counseling people, and when I met with my friends, and I couldn't be a counselor for them because it would be a dual relationship, but that was a struggle. It's a genuine struggle. I identify with you. I completely understand, but know that it is not a hopeless situation. Your creator can change that because he created you in your mother's womb, and before your mother knew you, your creator knew you because he created you, and he loves you way more than anybody else, and he's willing to offer that healing to you.
Thank you. Next question asks, how important is it to read those verses from Philippines and Peter when those were written by seasoned Christian veterans like Paul and Peter? I know those texts are inspired by the Holy Spirit, but they also show some individuality of the writers from one another. So would their views on fear and anxiety still apply to non-veteran Christians?
You should have told them that they're veteran Christians. They would have been surprised. Because, you can be great, like Jesus said about Philip, that here is a Jew in whom there is no guile, but greater, like when he spoke to Nathaniel, but greater is a person who actually, believes, because they can do greater things. That's a promise of the scripture. You have to allow the Holy Spirit. When you believe in Jesus, something happens special. The Holy Spirit of God comes and lives inside you, and he empowers you from the inside to access all these things. Without the Spirit of God's power, we cannot from ourselves, yes. But with the power of the Holy Spirit, who is Almighty God, we can. So it is applicable to you. It is very much.
Perfect. Thank you. And next question asks, can we take the recommended medicines without consulting a doctor or prescription?
Guess what it's called? It's called what? Drug abuse. So you do not want to do that because you are not a doctor. I mean, unless you think you have studied more than doctors and got specialized trainings and Judy, how long have you been studying, and how long do you need to be a doctor, practicing doctor? How long is that process look?
Too long.
So, give me a estimate here. 8 years or?
Yeah, 8 years. It took me more than 8 years.
More than 8 years. So congratulations if you think you have that much training that you can do it all by yourself. Judy doesn't need that 8 years. She can just prescribe medication to people, without those 8 years. Would you?
So the next question asks, what is the remedy for a person who's usually not anxious, but at times becomes worried about if they get anxiety? That is, being anxious about anxiety.
That's similar to GAD, right? But remember, anxiety, worry, panic, stress, all of these are normal until it starts interfering with your daily functioning. That's where it becomes a disorder. Where I could not relate to my family. I would run away from my family. I would run away from my friends. I would run away. I don't want to go outside. I don't want to do this. I don't want to go to shop. I don't want to see how it interferes with your basic functioning. Then it's a disorder.
Right. And next question asks, what is a remedy for a person who is usually not anxious, but at times becomes worried about if they get anxious? Oh, sorry, I'm reading the same question out again. How to manage acute anxiety without medicines? as some of these medications have some side effects.
Those medicines do have side effects. I would say, okay, find yourself a good counselor, see if it's working. You know, the most important part, and the last person who shares will touch upon this in a second, but it's about, the Lord Jesus. He is able to heal you. That's a real thing. It's not a fake thing. It happened to me. So I'm telling you from 100% practical experience. But if you need to, would you say if you had diabetes, somebody has diabetes, you don't need to take medication. My husband has diabetes and cholesterol, and he has to take medication. What happens if he doesn't? He will probably have a early heart attack, and it'll be a really more debilitating situation. So he needs to take it when there is a need. It's like every medicine has side effects, like it or not. Sometimes for my husband, it's so hard. He struggles with body aches and all kinds of stuff just from the cholesterol medication, but should he stop taking it because of that? I would say no, because it would be a worse situation if he doesn't take it. So if it is necessary, sometimes one of our friends here, Carrie, she spoke like sometimes, all of this depression, anxiety brings us down. It's a downward spiral. So the medicine might help us to pull it up, and then you continue counseling. And sometimes if your body is able to kick in and produce all those things with the help of exercise, with the help of good food diet, counseling, the tools you learn, and most importantly with Christ, if it is able to keep you up stable without making you go down and down again and again and hindering your basic functioning, you can stay without medication. But if not, you do what you need to do.
Perfect. And the last question asks, panic attacks, is this from Satan?
Panic attack, like for example, I told you that when I had it, right? I used to have panic attacks even when I believed in Jesus, right? It was at a point of time when Christ, when I believed in Christ, and I got almost, so that was in 2003. Like I literally moved from one of my friends is here, from her school, from our school, and into one of the new schools where some God intervened. I read the Bible, believed in Christ, and when I believed in Christ, I still used to get panic attacks because it is a genetic thing. I told you there is a genetic component and an environmental component for everything. The environmental things sometimes enforces the genetic as well. But I still would get panic attacks, and I used to ask God, "What do you want from me?" And God said, preach the gospel, preach the love of Christ, tell about what Christ has done. So I would stand in the road and distribute gospel tracts sometimes. And one time I was getting a panic attack, and I said, "God, if I fall in your hand," because I used to faint. I literally would faint. And my heart was to go like, and then suddenly started. And that was it. That was the last time I had panic attack. It was while I was sharing gospel with people. And so remember those enforcing things. I used to go with somebody. When I became a believer, I had to go to church all by myself. I didn't have anyone because I was the only believer in my whole family. All of those things were forcefully broken, and the Lord healed me as I completely surrendered to him. So that's, it doesn't have to be from Satan. It can be completely biomedical, psychological situation. So don't think it's necessarily from Satan. I'm not saying that a satanic influence, somebody who's Satan possessed might not show some of the mental health related signs, but not all mental health disorders are from Satan. It's very important for you to know that.